Washington State is once again taking on the federal government with a lawsuit aimed at protecting the privacy of families who rely on food assistance. Attorney General Nick Brown is now leading a coalition of 21 state attorneys general. They are asking a federal court in California to step in to stop the Department of Agriculture from demanding personal data about millions of SNAP recipients, a demand that a judge already said is likely illegal. Brown says Washington could lose more than $120 million a year if the USDA follows through with this, a move that he calls bullying that puts families at risk. Attorney General Nick Brown joining us live tonight to talk about what's at stake here and how far he's willing to go to protect your privacy. AG Brown, thanks for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, how is this latest USDA demand different from the one that the judge already blocked?
Well, it's simply a reiteration of their prior demand for tons of personal information. We're talking about addresses, dates of birth, that sort of personal information that we all protect. And as you noted, a court already ruled in our favor when we filed a motion for preliminary injunction last year. The court found that the government was acting in violation of federal laws and likely unconstitutional. This new demand is kind of a revision of what they did previously. It's calling this new demand for similar information more prospective and they're really trying to work their way around the court's order. But I think the court was very explicit last time that what they've done is illegal. It's contrary to what Congress intended, and the state of Washington and the other states that worked with us don't have to abide by that demand.
Can you tell us what kind of information the USDA is actually trying to access?
Yeah, well, we have thousands of people in our state that rely on SNAP benefits to survive, to put food on the table, to feed themselves, to feed their children. And for many, many years now, Washington State residents and residents across this country have benefited from that program so they can stay healthy. And when you apply for such benefits, you do have to give some personal information, which makes sense. But what the Trump administration did was really request a whole host of new information: your full social security number, your address, your date of birth, all of the information that can be used collectively to really take advantage of people's privacy. And this is something that in this day and age, we really want to be really mindful of guarding against. And again, this wasn't authorized by Congress. It wasn't required by Congress, and it was in a violation of what the law required of our states. And that's why we're fighting back and just simply asking the administration to follow the law, which frankly shouldn't be that hard.
The USDA claims that it needs the data for program oversight. What is your response to that argument?
I would say the program has been working effectively for many years now without this request for very private information. And what we really know is that the Trump administration is hell-bent on identifying any sort of person that they think might be undocumented and abusing our system. But that has not been borne out by the facts of how this program is administered. And we want to make sure that all Washingtonians, regardless of where they're from, have the right to benefit from this program in accordance with the law, which has been happening now for many years. And this new push is really far beyond what is necessary to administer the program and far beyond what Congress intended.
If the federal government does withhold the funding, how quickly could Washington families see an impact on food assistance?
Well, I can assure you that we would be back in court immediately to demand that they follow the law and do what the judge has ordered. And I would just note, tomorrow marks 1 year that I've been the Attorney General for this state. We've filed now 50 lawsuits against the administration, and we've successfully protected about $15 billion in money that was promised to Washington State. We're talking about nonprofits, state agencies, local governments that get pass-through dollars. And so we've been very successful in making sure that the administration follow the law, respect states' rights and state sovereignty. And we don't want to be in the situation that we were at towards the end of last year when we had thousands and thousands of families in Washington and all across this country very fearful that they weren't going to get the benefits that Congress said that they were entitled to. And so we don't want to be in that circumstance, and we'll fight back as vigorously as we need to.
To your point, you have faced off with the USDA and the government multiple times before and won. Do you believe that this is a case that could potentially go all the way to the Supreme Court?
No, I don't really. I mean, I think everyone recognizes that only really a small fraction of the cases that get filed by attorney generals or anybody else will ever make it to the Supreme Court. And We filed now 50 lawsuits. My guess is a very small number, maybe a couple would ultimately make it up to the Supreme Court. And that's why it's so important that state attorney generals are at the forefront of pushing back and filing these cases. And again, I think as a country, we can have robust policy disagreements about policy programs and initiatives. But once a law is passed, if you want to change that direction, you need to go back to Congress. You need to work with representatives. You can't simply bully your way through to your own objectives if you're president of the United States. And all we're asking is that the president follow that law and follow those requirements.
And then looking beyond this case, what message do you want to send to both Washington residents and the federal government about data privacy and accountability?
Well, first and foremost, we're not going to be bullied by the president or by anybody else. We're going to make sure that we can do everything we can to enforce Washington state law and the federal Constitution. And I do think that Washingtonians of all backgrounds, of all stripes, recognize how important it is to protect their personal information. We've seen so many cases where people's personal information is being used to steal their identity, to take the money that they may have, to do all kinds of malfeasance. And that is not limited to, individual actors. We want to make sure that that data is held private as much as we can, understanding that certain information is necessary to administer programs. But again, in this particular case, that information and that program has been working well now for many years. And this additional push by the administration is really trying to bully states into their own political objectives.
Attorney General Nick Brown, marking 1 year on the job. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate it.